Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing It Came From the Network. The topic of this It Came From the Network, Saturday Night Live, Season 10, Episode 15. And you heard me right, I said Saturday Night Live. The reason I'm picking this and going a little bit off of the path of wrestling shows, this is wrestling adjacent, but I recently watched a video that Drew Gooden put out where he reviewed all of the seasons of Saturday Night Live. And it kind of reminded me that this was something that was out there. With it being on Peacock, technically the network, I feel like it fits the parameters a bit, and I kind of wanted to throw a little bit of a change in here. I like to mix it up a bit, so hopefully you guys are okay with this journey. Normally I rate the matches on a 1 to 5 scale. I'm going to rate the segments, like as far as how funny they were to me, on that same scale from 1 to a 5. So for that is what we're going with here. There are a few things I want to mention. This is not the complete show. There was only 27 minutes, which I believe Saturday Night Live was an hour and a half at the time. So there's a lot that's missing off of here. We don't see the musical guest, which kind of makes sense. They probably had to clear the rights for the songs. There's other skits that I seen that were on this original airing that I didn't see on this. So it isn't a full show. There's probably somewhere out there a full version of this. The reason I picked this was the night before WrestleMania 1, and Hulk Hogan and Mr. T were the hosts for the show. Let's get right into it. The first thing we have we start with a cold open with Polka for Africa, which, if you were alive at the time, was making a parody of USA for Africa, the We Are the World song, if you don't remember that, and which led us right into one of the big criticisms at the time, and I do remember this, was that Prince wasn't involved in We Are the World, being one of the biggest stars in this. So we have a skit with Prince, who's played by Billy Crystal, wearing blackface, which, again, questionable. I know it's not appropriate, it's questionable. You can look at the picture here. Even then, it was definitely not a good call to do that. I don't think he had any malice in the decision, but still, again, it is questionable in my opinion. He could have done it without blackface. Just my opinion. The bit goes, as they're doing it, you have Hogan and Mr. T are his bodyguards, and the story was that he missed USA for Africa or We Are the World because he was bailing a bodyguard out. Bruce Springsteen tries to get involved. They kind of rough him up. A Cyndi Lauper tries to get involved. They rough her up, the women he has with him, which one of them is Julia Louis-Dreyfus, which is awesome. I had forgot she was even on Saturday Night Live at one point. I do think, however, this was one of the segments that I knew a lot of the history of. It just doesn't feel like it was as funny. It didn't come off as funny as I thought it would have been. That, coupled with the uneasiness of watching a man wearing blackface, I have to give this a 2. There was a couple little chuckles, but that's about it. It really wasn't great, in my opinion. From that, we go to the monologue with Mr. T and Hulk Hogan. This was kind of bad. The thing that stood out, there was a guy in the crowd heckling Mr. T, and Mr. T kind of beat him up and put him in like a sleeper type hold. The only thing that was somewhat redeemable was this was Hulk Hogan at his Hulk Hogan prime, doing the Hulk Hoganist promo you could, which, if you've seen Hulk Hogan, hopefully that makes sense. Overall, kind of a boring opener. Probably one of the worst openers, in my opinion, I've seen for Saturday Night Live, and I haven't seen every episode. I'm not a Saturday Night Live aficionado. I've seen episodes over the years. I mean, it's been on the air for 45 years plus now, so I've seen plenty of episodes, but this is one of the worst ones that I've seen. Could be because these are two guys that are not great at comedy. I'm giving that a 2 as well. Next up, we get a parody commercial with Ronald Reagan signing some documents and on a farm. He's walking around in denim jeans and a denim shirt. Basically, it's a parody of a commercial for Ronald Reagan jeans. The premise was good. It just wasn't funny, in my opinion. I think it could have been funnier. I get where they were going with it. I see what they were doing. They were kind of making fun of at the time, the Bugle Boy jeans or Calvin Klein jeans commercials. But it just wasn't funny, in my opinion. I'm giving it a 2. Next up, we have probably my favorite comedy segment of the show. We have an Ohio Savings and Loan commercial with Rich Rich Hall, which Rich Hall was an extremely funny comedian, talking about Ohio Savings and Loan. And I believe there was a thing, and I might be wrong, and a lot of this is going off of memory. I believe there was a big scandal, kind of like the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac thing with Ohio Savings and Loan in the 80s, and kind of how people couldn't get their money out of this, which was the gist of this. Even not fully knowing or remembering what this story was lampooning, Rich Hall's delivery and his comedy styles made this, probably in my opinion, the funniest part of the show. I thought it was funny. Like I said, I did enjoy it. It wasn't great. I'm giving this a 3. Next up, we have a mock-up of a show called The Joe Franklin Show, Joe Franklin being played by Billy Crystal. He has basically what I could get from this, and I don't know what it was mocking. If you do, you can put it in the comments. He's playing an old school, at the time even, an old school entertainer who's got older entertainers on the show. He has a ventriloquist who's been doing it since the 50s. He has another guy, a playwright, which was played by Martin Short, which Martin Short was pretty funny in this. They have Martin Short as an old playwright, old vaudeville act guy, and Liberace, the actual Liberace, was there. This was another somewhat funny segment. The funny parts were Billy Crystal and Martin Short. Without knowing what they were parodying, it may have been funnier if I knew that, but just the way they interacted and the characters they were playing, that to me was funny enough in itself. It would have probably got a better rating in my opinion if I understood the references more. I didn't really get all the references. I did kind of get the idea that they were making fun of people that were basically pining for the old days. It was a solid segment. I'm going to give this one a 3. Again, Martin Short was probably the best part of this, but overall, again, it's not something I really funny, but not something I would turn away from. I would watch it, is the best I could say about that. Now, going from that, we have the best segment of the show. Notice I said segment, not comedy. We have a promo, and it's obviously taped in the old WWF promo area. We have Rowdy Roddy Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton talking about WrestleMania the next day. The only thing that I didn't like about this, because this was a fantastic promo, the only thing I didn't like is they put a laugh track with this, which I didn't get it. I don't know if it was a studio audience that was laughing, and that's what came over, or if they put a laugh track in. But this was a deadly serious promo. I mean, it was Piper, so Piper's entertaining, and he did throw out quibs there, but the laugh track was a little bit off-putting. I did think the promo itself was fantastic. I'm giving that a 4. That was my favorite thing of this episode. I did enjoy it. Like I said, the laugh track threw it off a bit. Maybe without the laugh track, it's probably a 5 promo in my opinion, because we got two guys definitely that sold the fact that there was a WrestleMania on here doing what they do best. From that, we go right into a promo with Mr. T and Hulk Hogan. Mr. T is all over the place, kind of a mess. Hogan dials it back in. He gives another Hulk Hogan promo in the Hulk Hoganist way he can. And I know I'm making up a adjective now. If you've seen a Hulk Hogan promo, this is what he did here, which kind of saved it, because Hogan, while he wasn't a great promo like a Roddy Piper was, he did have a way of drawing you in. He had a magnetism, he had a charisma about him. I'm giving that promo a 3. I thought it was good. Mr. T was terrible. It probably would have been better without Mr. T if just Hogan talked. I probably would have thought more fondly of it. And last but not least, we have a segment with what seems to be a lawyer or a boss of some sort, being played by Martin Short, who's smoking up a storm, which is kind of funny seeing in a couple of these segments people smoking on TV. How natural and normal it was back then, and now it's something you never ever see. The whole premise of this was he would argue with whoever he was talking to. They would say something, he'd say, "No, it's not that. I didn't do that." And then they would say something, he'd say, "I knew that. You think I didn't know that? I know that." And that was the premise of it. It kept going and going. It had Jim Belushi was involved, the aforementioned Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and another actress whose name is slipping my mind. The Martin Short was funny, and the first couple times it was funny with his delivery. It dragged on and on. The joke kept going, and this wasn't one that was topical. So this is one that should have still played well, in my opinion. It didn't. It drug on. It wasn't as funny. The first couple times he said it was funny. Then they beat it in like they beat a dead horse. Overall, I'm giving that one a 2. We get the closing of the show with Hogan and Mr. T and everybody involved. Overall, probably I won't say it's the worst episode of Saturday Night Live I've ever watched. I have watched Steven Seagal's episode, which was absolutely terrible. And there have been others that have been pretty bad. Steven Seagal's the one that sticks out the most. This, for an episode of what's considered one of the standard bearers in comedy, and I know 85, this was 1985, was not a banner year for them, but they still had some great people on the show. Billy Crystal, Rich Hall was extremely funny. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who would go on to be Elaine in Seinfeld, extremely funny. Jim Belushi, he's not John Belushi, but Jim Belushi's funny too. Martin Short, extremely funny. So there were people on the show that could have made this funnier. It just, to me, it was a big miss in my opinion. I'm going to give the whole thing a 3. I thought it was just there. I wouldn't say it's good, I wouldn't say it's bad. I wouldn't even recommend you watching it, to be perfectly honest. But I kind of wanted to do this just as like I said, as a little bit of something different from what we normally do here. Let me know what you think about this. Should we take other excursions in the stuff that's on the network? On Peacock that involves wrestlers, I know there's at least a Saturday Night Live with The Rock. There's several episodes of Psych that are on the network that have wrestlers on it, and I'm sure there's other shows and movies on there involving a wrestler. Would you guys like to see us do more of this? Not maybe every week, but every now and again just throw in something like this as a change of pace? Let me know what you think down here in the comments. With all that being said, let's smash the like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't, and again, let me know your opinion. Would you like to see me do more of these, I guess you would say, side missions if this was a video game, where it's not necessarily reviewing wrestling, but reviewing wrestling adjacent stuff that I could find on Peacock? Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit me up with a yeah, no, maybe. If you have a suggestion for something, maybe you want to see me review The Rock's Saturday Night Live appearance, let me know. Hit me up down here. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another It Came From the Network.